This is a podcast for spiritual downloads, star seeds, light workers, and authenticity. Spiritual awareness is advised. Let us all join by taking a deep breath in and a deep breath out. You've just experienced title track. I guess it's not the title track, but you've just experienced a track called Inhale So High by the artist we know and love, Mary J. Wanna. So thank you for inhaling. I hope that you all enjoyed and celebrated your 420 events safely and responsibly. And if you haven't heard, the 420 concert, virtual concert, is posted on YouTube. And I do thank you so much for liking, sharing, and subscribing to the YouTube channel as more videos are being released. And just to go ahead and preface this video will not be featuring myself. The platform I use to record the videos is having technical difficulties. So that will be underway. Maybe for the next couple of episodes, it will not have the visual of you being able to see me, but I will, when I get to these episodes, post a visual representation for those who are interested. So thank you and welcome to the 1111 podcast. It's a lot of energy going on right now. It's so many different timelines, different collapses, different energies that are tapping in. So wherever this is meeting and greeting you, I hope that you're well. I hope that you're safe. And we're going to be shining a light on some really hideous topics today. So I hope you brought a strong stomach and an open mind and an open heart. Now, before I get to that, I just want to say I'm referencing a story from sacred texts. You do not have to subscribe to any religion or believe in anything to receive the nutrients from these topics. And I want everyone to feel warmly welcome here, regardless of what you believe or don't believe. This is not a requirement for you to believe anything to engage in the conversation or hear a conversation. I'm definitely open to people who have different mindsets than I do, and getting in those comfortable, discomforting places as you stretch beyond your comfort zone. That's what I think we're here for, to expand, to understand. So I just want to make sure that is clear, that you do not have to subscribe to any of these belief systems. And maybe it's better if you don't. I share what I know, and this is one of the topics and stories that I grew up hearing about. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah and the story of Lot. And I really wanted to talk about this topic because the topic I really wanted to talk about, I felt too traumatic to go directly towards it. So similar to the episode I did about pornography, for example. I debated if I should name the title episode pornography or if that would be too blah in your face. But hey, that's kind of what the porn industry does, right? Literally and physically. So I said, let's give it right back to them. And so this topic is more hidden and more sensitive. And for those who have experienced abuse, this is not to trigger you or to send you back down a dark memory lane, but this is more to shine a light on these topics of human psyche and human consciousness that is not discussed. And all it does is give room for it to fester and grow in the shadows. So often a lot of light working is going into those shadows with a flashlight to say, hey, I see you. Hey, motherfucker, I see you. Get out of there. And so anyone who's been a product of this, and I believe most of us to some varying degrees have been, as trauma is what when we arrive here, the contrast of where we've been, our home, our spiritual realm. When we incarnate into these physical beings, we naturally experience trauma. So regardless if you think you've been traumatized or not, think you've been abused or not, I would say you probably have and may not realize it, or you may not categorize it as that. And no trauma is worse than anyone else's. So you don't have to feel like, well, at least I didn't have it that bad. There's no comparison. You shouldn't have to experience half of the things that we're experiencing. And yes, there will always be someone who has it worse. Doesn't justify or mitigate what you've gone through. And doesn't justify what anyone else is going through. So I know that these topics can trigger a lot of painful feelings and can cause a lot of shame. But I want you to know that that's the exact opposite of what I'm here for. I'm not here to shame or condemn anyone. I'm here to tell everyone that love is powerful and more overriding than any fear and any low vibrational energy you could ever tap into. And that anyone that wants you to feel bad about having a human experience or distorted desires because of trauma or because of your own pain, that there's something wrong with you that needs to be fixed or that you need to be condemned to hell. Quite the opposite. You need to learn how to integrate and love those aspects that we want to shame and hide and are afraid of. So I hope that that lays the groundwork of the purpose of this conversation. And the topic, the main thing that really stood out to me was the concept of incest. The previous episode, I was speaking about the womb men or the wounded men. And what has happened is that there is a war, a subconscious and very literal wars happening. And one of those is on the divine feminine consciousness. Now, part of that is because of the fear of vulnerability, the fear of sensitivity, the fear to feel. So a lot of people who are not born with a womb, in this case, have separated themselves from the feminine consciousness. And those are where the fears of homophobia come from, the fear of women, the fear of, I mentioned before, castration. All those types of fears are really the fear of the justice that would be served as the karma due to those who have hurt, persecuted women. And all it takes is for a system or a society to repetitiously condition people to believe one way. So if you believe that women need to be burned by the stake because they're witches, then you've created a fear of women. If you believe that, people who engage in same-sex behavior are evil, you're missing it. You're missing it. Why would anyone tell you that that's evil if they are talking about love? We're not talking about the ways that it was done, particularly in the story of Lot, as a humiliation ritual, as a violation. But when there's two adult consenting relationships, people have too much business with everyone else's business. And we're going to really break all of that down. So this kind of goes hand in hand with the subconscious war on the feminine consciousness. So if you're not familiar with the story of Lot, it was written in the book of Genesis, of sacred texts. And it's basically the story of the two cities that were so wicked they had to be destroyed, Sodom and Gomorrah. I want to know, how did they become so wicked? What were they before? Were they always wicked? Did they devolve into wickedness? What categorized them as being wicked and what allowed for that to happen? And so the story really starts with Lot and his relative group, his family system, right? He probably considered them family. His family system. And he was warned by these foreign beings who arrived to let him know, hey, we got to get you guys out of here because we're going to destroy the city. And initially the beings arrived to try to evaluate to see how terrible the city was. And while they're there, these group of people, I guess everyone who lived in the town, just shows right up at Lot's house. And they're like, hey, you got some new people in there. Bring them out here. And they're not just like, hey, we want to talk. They're actually like, no, we want to actually violate you. So bring those men out here so we can have sex with them. And Lot is like, wait, hold on. What? And this is right here where it switches to not only the lack of protection for the feminine, not only the separation of oneself to even say this, but also ensues the fear of homophobia. These men are demanding to have sex with other men. So Lot steps in and says, wait, I have 2 daughters. They've never been with anybody. Have them. Do whatever you want to them, but don't do it to the men. So right there, there's a subconscious belief that men are the victims. Men deserve protection. And this is all from my lens, right? So there's, I'm sure, more ways to interpret this. Now, as historians would tell me that this actually was not about homosexual relations, but this was actually supposedly going to be a humiliation ritual where men during this time would basically impose themselves on other men to show dominance and to show that we are the conquerors kind of attitude. Now, I think that's only a sliver of the pie. I think that's part of it. I think it also sends a subconscious mindset that girls are for that kind of abuse. Girls are for that kind of action. And I don't know where the daughters were, if they overheard this, but I imagine they did. Whether subconsciously or consciously heard their own father sell them out to protect strangers that just arrived. Now, just pausing on that for a moment, understand that anyone who's gone through abuse and trauma may understand that these bonds of trauma occur, where you may actually draw closer to your abuser or attract people who remind you of your abuser. And so if you are someone who has been abused, violated, betrayed, and etc., so many different things that have occurred, and you want to release those shackles, you want to be free of that bondage, of that subconscious tie, I do provide donation-based counseling for those who are interested. And in June, I will be doing a 6-month revamp for those who want to really seriously, dedicatedly heal and consciously move forward. So in June, I will be providing as much counseling to anyone who would like to sign up for it. There is a link in the description for the Full Circle Counseling sign-up sheet. So you can sign up and you'll learn more details about this. So I just want to mention that help is available, whether through myself or through some other platform. Please get some help. You're not alone in this. And I never want you to feel that you have to carry all of this to the grave or by yourself. You never do. And so in this story of Lot, we see a very weak-minded man. And now this might have been the custom during his time, sure. It might have been a lot of different things. Maybe he thought he was doing the best thing to spare his family, but it sounds like it was more to spare himself. Maybe he wanted to seek favor with these beings, so he wanted to show his unwavering loyalty to them while dismissing his biological children. And, that to me is what I consider beta betrayal and mindset. You betray the people who depend on you to protect them. You betray the most vulnerable community. You betray them for what? Now, to understand love, I did an episode called True Love. And part of that definition is to know that love is to take someone as part of yourself. If he was choosing to not separate himself from his femininity and chose to see himself as a whole person with both regarding masculine and feminine energies, he would have never been able to say that consciously without knowing this is going to backfire and come back on me in some way. This is going to create a karmic debt. This is going to cause a ripple effect and cause shame to oneself by rejecting and not choosing to take his daughters as a part of himself. Would he have wanted that to be done to him? That is the most simplest question. Would he have wanted that to be done to him? And he chose to, again, as we see through sacred texts, the masculine consciousness throwing the feminine consciousness out to the wolves, essentially. And so this lack of protection is steeped in the feminine consciousness. It has a great effect on self-esteem, what the feminine consciousness thinks she's worth, what the feminine consciousness has learned to expect from the masculine, and other ways that the feminine has developed to try to stay safe, which can result in toxicity through manipulation and, power and things of that nature. But when someone is being abused continually, there are adaptive strategies that show up. And as I've said in past conversations, money is not the root of all evil. Trauma is. Because when we experience trauma, it fortifies a connection from our divinity and it creates a split within us. When those splits occur, it allows for energies to pour in, whether benevolent or maleficent energies. And so something that most people understand is that everyone has been violated in some way, but the particular violations of what women have endured is extreme and often subconscious. There's no way to say this equals this or this is what happened. And oftentimes these cases are not believed. These cases are doubly traumatizing. When a woman has been abused and she goes to the police, they start asking her all these invasive questions. They start asking her all of these things that are traumatic in itself. And they remove the humanity out of it because it's going through the mindset of logic and facts instead of from the heart space of this person doesn't need to reevaluate these events that just happened. This person needs comfort. And so as a result of this, the beings, get Lot in the house and they're like, hey, we got to go now. We got to get the hell out of here or it's going to be hell. And they like, where are your son-in-laws? Where's your wife? Where are your kids? Get them. Let's go. Get your dog. Let's get out of here. And Lot goes and tells the son-in-laws. And the son-in-laws, I never had noticed this. I had recently read this, for getting context on this topic. I never noticed the son-in-laws just laughed at him. They thought he was a joke. They thought he was joking. And so then I paused again and I thought, why would they think he was joking? Why would they not take him seriously? What kind of person was Lot for people to literally laugh at him and not think him seriously? And it goes into other things that I feel are subconscious as well. Now, I say this on pretty much every episode, but I haven't got a chance to say it yet. So if you have any topic requests that you would like to hear covered, please submit those topics. Let me know what you'd like to hear. In addition, if you would like to be a guest on this platform or have me be a guest on yours, I'd be honored to do so. Let's find a way to collaborate. My information, again, is in the description. Reach out and let's keep moving forward. Let's continue to peel the veil back and see these layers of really painful things that we've had in our human psyche, in our human storylines. They're not just there for no reason. And in order to not continue repeating the same karma, the same stories, I'm so tired of these same stories, the same movies, the same music, the same lyrics, the same chords. Like, we need something else. So let's understand, what is the what? Why are we here? I don't know if a lot of people just think we're just here to start wars and make money. I don't know. But it seems like a lot of people are either not understanding the seriousness of the times we are in, or checked out, completely checked out, numbing themselves. So I don't know what exactly, but I do know for those who want to know and will find. So we're in a very unique time because the future has an ancient heart, as they say. And right now we have literal plagues going on in Israel. This entire situation is because of these sacred texts. So trying to understand them, they don't need to be understood really. They're playing out as they need to. But it might give you a little bit of sense of peace as you walk through this warfare that we're in. So apparently, his lot in life was to be someone who was not taken seriously. And so as he's hemming and hawing and deciding what to do, the beings are like, look, okay, we getting y'all out of here. Grabs everyone. It's just like, let's go. And I guess the son-in-law's just hee ha ha'd until they died, I guess. So we don't hear any more about them. But as they leave, they're leaving. And this is the classic iconic scene that we see in a lot of depictions of media where they're running away from the city. They're running, they're getting out of there. And there's, hellfire brimming down and all this stuff. And there's a classic iconic moment where they show Lot's wife turn back. And it says, she turned around, his wife turned around and turned into a pillar of salt. So she becomes a pillar of salt. Now, in the midst of all of this, somehow before they even ran out of the city, the angels are telling him, I'm just going to call them beings because I don't know if they are angels indeed, but these beings are telling him, you got to go to the mountain, bro. And he's like, still debating this. And he has a full-fledged conversation. And according to sacred text, he has a whole conversation about why the mountains are not the best place for him to go. And he asked and begged to go to a little town over yon way and just wants to go there. Like, send me over yonder. I'll go there instead. And they're like, fine, whatever, go. And, he goes to the little town, but then he leaves the little town because he's like, nah, it's probably too close. I guess that's what he's thinking. And so he goes to the mountains anyway. And I just thought it was very interesting that I thought, maybe he didn't have enough time. Like, I know when things are really chaotic, you don't have time to really sit and unpack things, right? You got to go. You don't have time to be sitting there having a whole conversation. But the way it was described in this text is that he did have a whole conversation about the town nearby. And there were so many other things that could have been maybe asked during that time that were not. And so I thought it was interesting that he begged to go to a place and then realized that was still too close to comfort for him to be there. I don't know if that was the real reason. I feel there were other motives going on behind his hesitation. And of course, he could have just been in fear. He might have just been afraid of the unknown, And that's why I have a whole place dedicated to going into the unknown to help us ease into those frequencies of the discomfort that you're going to feel, the anxiety that comes up, right? And so maybe he just needed a moment. So he goes to the little town first and then decides to take his family to the mountains, to the caves. And that is where the women, the daughters he has, whenever the feminine feels unprotected, unsafe, she goes hyper masculine, which means she's going to make plans for herself. And we see this throughout sacred texts. We see this throughout history. We see this throughout human consciousness, where the feminine energy goes into hyper masculinity because there's not a protection. The feminine should be covered by the masculine energy. And so when we don't have that, the pendulum swings so far to the opposite extreme. And so the feminine, not having any protection, not having any foresight provided by the masculine, right? They were just in a little town close to where they were that had just been destroyed. And before leaving that town, there were no men secured for the women. So they're in these caves and they're feeling fear and they're feeling desperate. And since there was no protection, they already know their father will just abandon them, literally throw them to rapists and abusers and pedophiles and all these different things. So they already know what kind of person they're dealing with. So out of that pain and fear and knowing that they won't receive any type of protection, they take it upon themselves to carry on their bloodline because they're thinking about the next generation. They're having the foresight of what's going to happen after this. And they're thinking they're the only humans on the planet. So they go and repay basically the same type of betrayal and violation that Lot suggested should happen to them. They repaid that. They paid it forward. And so understand that for a long time in history, back in like the 1800s, for example, women were seen as property. And because women are considered property during this time, they can't own property. So a lot of times you'll hear in the 1800s, and even one of my favorite poets, well, I shouldn't say that. I don't think I've read enough poetry to have a favorite, but a classic poet, Edgar Allan Poe, wrote a story. He was deeply infatuated, even in love, with someone who was biologically related to him. And that was seen as normal. Even the sacred text that describes what the daughters did to their father Lot, there was no, you should be condemned to hell right after that. It was just like, okay, la-di-da, next to the next chapter. No, no evil was considered happening then. And during that time, they didn't see this as, I guess the only word that comes to mind is disgusting, right? They didn't see this as that. But even more than that, the inbreeding obviously has impacts on your DNA, impacts on your social structure, impacts on your health, your wellness. And it's also a violation of your own divinity, I'd say. And so we have a lot of storylines where these things were just common. It's common practice for women to be sold to someone or to marry their relative. And, I was reminded of this memory that is showing up is that I guess it was last weekend I went out roller skating. And, for those who may know, I am always prepared to go rollerblading at any time. And, I decided to go out and go roller skating and everything. And I have my own roller skates, but I am not the best, I will tell you. I am not good at it. Nonetheless, doesn't stop me from trying, doesn't stop me from going and just enjoying being on the wheels. And so I went skating and, I'm out skating and everything. And not once, not twice, but 3 times this lady had people interfere and try to get me to fall. I didn't fall, with the exception of the 3rd time. The 3rd time was a successful time where a group of men tripped me and I finally fell. And before then, there were many attempts to try to trip me. Now, some of those were not intentional, the minor ones, but the big 3 times that people tried to trip me felt very intentional. And so it reminded me of something that happened in my youth. But as I'm tripped this third time, that actually resulted in me falling. See, I wouldn't have fell on my own, so I thought, but I fell during this, and I fell, and I got up, and I just said, I just said to myself, "That's life. That's life. Fall down 7 times, get up 8. That's life." And I started thinking about Frank Sinatra. That's life. Just cue it up in my head, right? I'm just playing that. And as I am continuing to skate after falling, and they tried, they not tried, they I don't know if it was intentional, but they tripped me like in front of like the stadium of where like all the spectators are. And I was just like, that's nice. And I got back up and I started skating some more. And I was reminded of a time. I was probably in 7th grade. I was in middle school. And, I was raised around a lot of different energies. And I'm very grateful that I know a lot of people, a lot of women particularly, have had abuse from their father, particularly sexual abuse. And I'm very grateful that that was not a part of my story. There's plenty of other abuse. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of other, a host of it. And there was other abuse that occurred from other relatives, but I'm very grateful that that did not occur from my biological father. And as a result, it did put a strain on my closeness with this person because they were so afraid of not wanting to give the wrong impression that I did not have a close relationship with this person, besides so many other reasons. But I was reminded of one incident where we actually went to the roller skating place. We went out roller skating. And like I said, I'm in like 7th grade, I'm in middle school. And we're out roller skating. And again, these group of guys show up and intentionally trip me. And I'm about to fall. And my paternal catches me. I typically refer to this person as the paternal. The paternal catches me. And in this moment, I'm trying to get my balance. Part of me was about to just give up, but I could feel the masculine saying subconsciously, "You can do this, just stand up." It probably was just my own self, right? But I stood back up, and the guys who tripped me, ironically, that same day that I decided to go, that we went roller skating, there was a group of classmates that were also at the roller skating place, the same time, same location, everything. And I see her, one of the people that I know from my class, with the group of guys that just tripped me. And I'm just like, okay, whatever. And so I get to school, the next day, and I'm thinking me and this person, this female friend of mine, are kind of okay, I guess. I think we're kind of friends. Sure. And she was kind of more in the quote in crowd. And I'm like, as one of those people who was just whatever. I didn't really belong anywhere. So I was just there. And, so I'm like talking with her, and she's like, "Hey, I'm really sorry about what happened while you're out skating." I'm like, "Yeah, what was that? What was that about?" And she goes, "Yeah, those guys that tripped you, they didn't know that that was your paternal figure. They thought that that was someone you were dating." And I was like, "What?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I'm just like, I'm still kind of baffled. I'm like, that still gives them no right to trip me. Like, what, what does it have to do with anything? And so I never got any more answers on that, never got any more clarity on that. But I do know that fear, jealousy, perception, assumptions, denial, all of these things can cause a ripple effect. It can cause so much unnecessary pain. So instead of these guys approaching me and asking me if I guess I'm single or what have you, they decide to trip me and get a better vantage point, I suppose. And so I was, utterly disturbed by the notion that they would even think that, for one. And I knew I was queer back then, so I was very like, oh dear. I was very confused by all of it. And yeah, naturally I just kind of kept that story to myself and continue to move along with life as one might try. And yeah, so understanding that these people and energies want to continue these storylines that operate in the shadow. And one thing I will say that I'm actually grateful about this current administration is that this current administration thinks that it's invincible. So what it's actually doing is very purposeful. The world clearly is showing us that they were not ready for a Black female leader. And all that would have done, if we had a Black female leader, all the racists would have gone in the closet. All the pedophiles would have continued doing what they do in the dark. But now, because their fearless leader they think is invincible, they think they are too, by association. So a lot of these things are revealing themselves. A lot of these things are having a light shine on them out of their own ignorance. And so I would encourage you all to continue to have these challenging conversations, to continue to have these unsettling debates amongst yourself, and to uncover these uncomfortable memories and feelings and really go through the depths of healing that's necessary. Because all this is happening is because people want to run from their pain instead of embrace it. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be fun. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but it is a way to get free. It is a way to live a more authentic, wholesome life, that you're not controlled by these things being revealed without your permission or being controlling you subconsciously. Now, we can get into the psychology of all of these things and how they've impacted humanity, but there is more that I think needs to just be processed right now. So I thank you for listening, subscribing to the YouTube channel, sharing these messages. Please get these out to your Spotify listeners. I need at least 100 people to stream it in one consecutive listening, so that way this channel can become monetized. It's like every day we're almost there. We just need a few more listeners and subscribers. So if we can get enough people to really subscribe, I am more than grateful. I'm going to leave some really good recommendations, and one of those is going to be the Trevor Noah special, The Joy in the Trenches. And that's, I think, a beacon of hope in times of great uncertainty. So I leave this all with you, and I ask that you will just clear your minds and hearts of anything that was triggering. Go wash it off. Go bathe in some energies and frequencies, sage, Palo Santo, all of the things, please do. And if you haven't heard from the Womb Man episode, the previous episode, I did leave a frequency for all who have been under the narcissistic abuse, which I would say many of us have, but particularly for those who have a womb. It's very important to detach yourself from these energies and to protect yourself. Now, you're always divinely guided and protected, so this is not to insinuate fear. It is, however, to remind you of how powerful you are, how worthy and beautiful you are. And so you don't need to continually give and be just pouring yourself out for these energies. Now, whether you've dated narcissists or you were raised by them, Are you just recognize these traits maybe in yourself? Whatever it is, it's not your fault. However, clearing the energy, it gives you an opportunity to really embark on a new journey where you can be free from all the shame. And just remember, if you have been victimized, no shame on you, shame on them. There is no shame on those who have been hurt. There's only shame on those who intentionally are predators and have no conscience. So with that being said, be well to all. Until next time.